It's about which items should you track throughout the project execution phase. What should you really track during project execution? Major hint for the content of this video, it's not just tasks. Hi, I'm Jennifer Kenny. I'm the best-selling author of The Innovation Mindset and author of the award-winning book 100% Capacity. I work with major corporations globally to help them deliver successful projects and to innovate. And I work with their leaders to help them be more innovative and at the same time deliver successful projects, not just on paper, but success in terms of real business impact. So when I think of the items that you should track throughout the execution phase of your project, I think that there are 5 critical items that are really worth your attention and worth focusing on. I've talked in other videos about the importance of differentiating your project in terms of thinking about project success and not just delivery on requirements. That if you think about what is your primary customer or multiple customers' definition of success and you craft and build that with them before you ever reach the execution phase and during the execution phase, then your progress against definition of success is an absolutely critical project metric. Now, lots of project teams will go, oh, but we included that in all of the project plans. Oh, but we've done that. It exists in all of the sprints that we're doing. Oh, but that exists already in all of the JIRA tasks we're doing. And I would ask you to pull yourself back from that and go, is the definition of success something that lives and breathes in me as the project lead or me as the project manager or me as the head of the PMO? Is that something that lives in my consciousness and my understanding? And is it something that I am at a moment's notice ready to discuss with my primary stakeholders? Now, let's talk about stakeholders for a moment. I advocate against the idea of just having stakeholders. I think you want to make them a lot more than stakeholders. Stakeholders mean I've got a little bit of skin in the game about the outcome. Doesn't necessarily mean that I'm committed to being to the project being successful. If you're a customer, you are committed to something being successful. You are committed to being satisfied. So anytime that you go to a shop and buy something, if you're not satisfied, you expect to be able to bring it back. If you don't get what you want from what you ordered, it breaks, it doesn't work the way you want it to, you expect to be able to send it back and get a refund. Now think about success in terms of your project. Once you've done a custom development inside an organization, or you've built your own unique product, or you've delivered a drug to market, you're not doing a whole bunch of sending it back. Now you might get recalls and that's a whole other conversation, but there isn't a lot of ability for the customer to go, don't like this, I'm just send it back. What they're going to do is they're just not going to buy it, they're just not going to adopt it, they're just not going to use it. So when you think of definition of success, what you're really looking at is eye on the prize. What does it mean for the customer to be satisfied? Let's talk about internal customers for a moment. You could have 5, 6, 10, 15 stakeholders on a particular project, and those stakeholders will all have slightly different interpretations of what success means. Part of what you're doing is you're building a shared understanding of what success means for the impact it's going to have on the company and what those metrics look like. And then you're moving forward with that definition of success by which they are all committing that they are going to declare satisfaction for. So what you have is you have a group of people with one person as the head, as the leader, as the final arbiter, as the final decision maker. And what you're doing is you're asking them to declare success. And if they see changes happening in their departments, in their organizations, in their industry, in your industry, that they're recognizing the impact that's going to have on the project. And they're having conversations with you to either incorporate that or to make a slight deviation on the direction of the success metrics for the project. So step number 1 is definition of project success. The second one is one of the obvious ones. It's resource usage against your constraints. That's one of the real determining factors as to whether or not you're going to make your timelines and your deadlines, as to whether or not you've undertaken more scope than you're able to assume, whether or not your team is effectively working to be able to deliver on what you anticipate is their capacity. So that's an important metric, but it's a fairly simple one. It's a fairly pre-established one. The other one is risks and issues. So identification of early risks, according to Gartner, can reduce project failure by up to 30%. So as you start thinking about risk and issues, and I've spoken about this in a couple of other videos where I talk about risk and the conversation around risk being something that gets introduced very early in the project and very early in the conversations with your internal customers and with your stakeholders. And so that it's something that is owned and communicated around and discussed and thought through by not just you and your leads on the project, but also by your customers and your broader stakeholders. So the risk management and the issue management is something that's an ongoing thing. It's dynamic and it is current. It's not just a log. The fourth thing is the stakeholder satisfaction. I talked earlier about the idea of really understanding and having a definition of success. One of the roles that you play as a project lead or as the head of a PMO is that your conversations with the customer around the morphing and changing of definition of success, which is inevitable as phases of the technology get introduced, as people get to see demos of what it is that's possible, as people get to be able to pay attention to what is changing in their world and how that changes their requirements or their definition of success as the project evolves. Your understanding of stakeholder satisfaction needs to be something that you are constantly paying attention to and managing and monitoring. That is, I would believe, an integral part of your job. So super simple example that I can give you right now is I've hired someone to do some AI development work for me for a tool that I'm interested in bringing to my customers who are struggling with a lot of the things that we're dealing with in these videos in terms of project success. And how can I bring my thinking and incorporate it into tools and technologies for them? So I've hired this brilliant little team and they are doing the development work. We've gone through all the requirements, we did all the specs, we had all of the conversations, we did all the things, and now we're in the development mode. And so I'm getting a first response in terms of wireframes and what this thing is going to look like today, and I'm super excited about it. But that's where we're doing a calibration. And what we've tried to do, even though it's a tiny little project relative to some of the things that you might be doing, is it's not a multi-billion-dollar project, let me tell you. But if you're doing a multi-billion-dollar project, the smaller increments and the smaller time lapse between understanding, are we on track, are we in alignment, are we going to be successful? Are our customers satisfied? The smaller those increments can be and the smaller increments you can build into the project, the higher chance you have of staying in alignment with your customer as their desires and wishes and business needs actually shift and change over time. The fifth one, which I consider to be one of the most important ones because it is one of the most generative elements of your project, is your team health and capacity. Now, your team health is one thing and the team's capacity is another thing. They obviously influence each other. But your team's health is how close are they to burnout? Are we overloading them? Do they feel like their successes are being celebrated? Do they know what done means? Have they had wins around completing definition of done? Do they have internal customers who are helping them translate the final customer's definition of success down the line to them in a way that is relevant and delivers context for them? Do they feel like they know what they're doing and they know how they're contributing because their leader, their manager, their boss, their team lead is delivering context for them that helps them make sense of the work that they're doing and helps them understand how that work contributes to the overall end successful result? The other thing is, what are you doing to build capacity in your people on an ongoing basis? What are your direct reports doing to build capacity in your people? What are the team leads doing to build capacity in your people? And what are your people themselves doing to build capacity? Is the idea of building capacity an ongoing conversation that you're having with the team, or are the team simply running on empty, which would be, we're looking to solve new problems that we don't understand completely with the same tools we tried to solve them with a year ago. So we all know Einstein's definition of insanity, which is trying to produce different outcomes using exactly the same approaches, methods and thinking. I think his was more succinct than that. But if we're trying to produce different outcomes with the same approaches, methods, and thinking, we are nuts and we are setting ourselves up for failure. So if you're not building capacity in your team, capacity to be able to understand the world better, to be able to read the world better, to be able to manage change better, to be able to see how to think about change, to be able to manage tech debt better, to be able to feel more competent and confident about having difficult conversations around breakdowns and issues that aren't working, and to be able to advocate for themselves, to be able to engage with customers in a way that they are having co-inventive conversations, not right and wrong conversations. If you're not part of helping build that capacity of the team, then your team is going to start running on empty pretty quickly. I've written a paper called Execution by Design, which weaves a lot of this thinking into a very practical approach to how do we think about execution inside a project. If you think that might be valuable for you, it's a free resource. It's available on my website. The website is www.jenniferkenny.com. It's under free resources. It's called Execution by Design White Paper. Read it. Let me know whether or not it helps you with this thinking. And as you go forward with tracking your project in the execution phase and you broaden your understanding of what really is valuable to track, I hope that your project becomes more successful, and I wish you the very best of luck with your project success. Take care.